The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Republic of Kenya. You cannot change the system from those or from the systems that created that failure. For example, we have political parties in the Republic of Kenya. Those political parties are aligned along to tribes. They are political parties for different tribes and different regions. So if you want to solve tribalism, you cannot solve tribalism by still getting into those political parties that are along tribal lines. Neither can you get into those political parties and solve corruption, for instance, because those political parties have enabled corruption for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So you are not going to get in there and change a system that is established and financed by corruption. We may need our own vehicle through which we can bring the change that we want. And the same message should also go to Dr. Fred Matiang'i, that you cannot change anything by going to Jubilee. Jubilee is part of the problem that we are dealing with. It's part of the odious debt. It's part of the corruption that started all the way from 2013. So if you take us back to the old vehicle that led us the wrong way, hata ipakwe rangi haiwezi kubadilika. Just like taking us to Kanu and expecting us to trust it.
Okay, well, that's interesting because then we've looked at interpretation of a proverb that can then be applied to daily life and what we're seeing in the country at the moment. Let's take a couple of steps back, Morara, that one, you were going around the country looking at ways in which Kenyans' money had been spent and that those projects were not completed. People were very switched on to like, okay, this is actually happening, what's going on? Why did that stop?
Well, first we need to acknowledge that there is very huge cyber warfare in Kenya where state operatives target any critics of the government through sponsored hate on social media. And before we become activists or people trying to effect political change, we are people who come from families, we are businesses, we have reputations to protect and children to protect and our own safety. And when the state overwhelms you with social media hate through being targeted by these bloggers, probably you need to take a step back because you can't outcompete them.
Okay.
They are using state resources to have thousands of youth hired as bloggers who register several accounts and therefore if a lie is told on social media or if they defame you or if they go after your reputation, it can be overwhelming even to you and even to your family. And at some moment you have to take a breather, take a step back, look at the bigger picture, understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, how achievable it is in the short term and in the long term. And that is what I needed, a much needed break to also look at myself as a person. Before I look at the country, what do I want to do for myself before I think about what I want to do for Kenya? And I've taken a break and I've thought through it and I've realized, well, I can be extremely successful as an individual, which I am and continue to be successful in business and in many other things that I do. But it's not enough. It's not enough to be individually successful.
Right.
It still bothers me that there are people out there who are jobless and unable to secure job opportunities, not out of their own fault and not because they didn't acquire enough education, but because they have a government that is destroying job opportunities by running down the economy. It still bothers me that there are people out there who are completely unable to start a business because of access to capital, because we have reduced our banking system and access to capital to be a bandit economy. I was listening to you on my way here and I heard you say we become a wash country that just enables money laundering and other illegal activities as legitimate careers. And people are therefore unable to turn the dreams that are in their head into realities on the ground. So these are things that still bother me when I sleep. And I feel there are little steps I can do. Probably I can't carry the whole world in my shoulders, but I still have to make an attempt to bring some change if the favor of God is upon me to bring that change, then I hope to see it during my lifetime.
Okay.
But if it is not, I believe I'll be part of the voices that will go into that change if it comes someday into the future.
Morara, you see, when we talk about what you did, and one thing that we have to do as a people is let's celebrate people when they're still alive, you know? We give you your flowers for highlighting where the country is, how public funds have been spent. And with that, many would say, thank you for bringing that up. But even while at that, it was not easy. You used your own resources. And we see the attacks that came through. What did that do to one Morara Kebaso when government machinery was directed to you for saying that which must be said?
It's been very heavy. It's not just government machinery. It's also opposition machinery. Because, you know, we are living in a country where if you side with government, it's messed up. If you side with opposition, it's messed up because the people who are in opposition were once in government. So even as you go around the country to audit these projects, you get to projects that are not necessarily by William Ruto. You get to projects that belong to, for instance, I went to Maua in Meru, and I found a road where Honorable Mithika Linturi, the organizing secretary for DCP, was the contractor. He was not just a leader in that area. He was actually the contractor through a company called Articon Limited, where him and his then wife, Marianne Keitani, who is now an MP, were the directors of the company, and they were given 1.2 billion shillings to do a road from Maua through Adhiru to Meru National Park, and that road was never done. And the residents kept explaining to me how many pregnant mothers have died on the road while being rushed to hospital. You know, people try to deliver at home and they get complications, and when they're being rushed to hospital, the road is so bad that you cannot get to hospital by whatever means, and these people have, you know, nothing else to do but just watch people die. You travel around the country and you find projects by these same people in the opposition. So the machinery that came after me is not just government machinery, it's government and opposition machinery, and that is very heavy for one young man without the level of resources and without the tribal backing that some of these leaders enjoy. You know, apart from these leaders having political power, they also enjoy a very strong tribal backing, in the sense that if you try to talk to people on the ground about a leader they are very passionate about, the likelihood that they'll burn your car or destroy your property is very high. You cannot, for example, go to Nyeri and tell people that, look here are the facts, here is the Auditor General's report, here is the EACC report. The Honorable Rigathi Gachagua registered a company called Machine Center Limited, and it received 438 million in a contract for the Sagana River Restoration Project, which was worth 1.2 billion, and that is why you don't have water in your farms at Kiawara in Kieni East. You can't say that on the ground. So it was very heavy on me emotionally and physically. I became unsafe because you move around the country and you don't know who is a friend and who is an enemy. You do business around the country, you don't know who is a friend, who is an enemy. You don't know who is angered by the sentiments you're making or by the revelations that you're making. Because most people are only happy when you say that Honorable William Ruto, the president, is corrupt. But corruption did not begin in 2022. It is something that we have to go way back and start understanding at what point did we get lost. So it was, it almost led me into depression. But I've had a meeting with myself and with my family, and I've spent time doing my own personal things, traveling around, eating good food, doing exercise, and just breathing fresh air. And I've thought through it. And I've realized, by the way, probably I had too high expectations. How would I expect that a system that has been there for 50, 60 years would change overnight? Secondly, I probably misunderstood the problem in Kenya, because when I began traveling around the country to bring socio-political change, my understanding was that the problem in Kenya is the political leaders. That if we change leaders, Kenya will change. But now, with experience in mind, I now know that the bigger problem in Kenya is the people. It's not the leaders. The leaders are a result of the people. That probably we blame the employees too much. and forget the employer, who is the Kenyan people. And this money that is being lost in projects, it doesn't belong to the government and it doesn't belong to Morara Kebaso. It belongs to the people of the Republic of Kenya. So the question is, why are the people unbothered with their money getting lost? I looked at the by-elections in Mbeere North and I was shocked. I was surprised beyond words. Here is a gentleman called Leon, who used to be called Leonard Muriuki Njeru. He goes and changes his name to Leo Wamudhende Njeru.
He did?
Because he's being pursued by the EACC. And in June 2025, EACC has written to the DPP to have this guy prosecuted for a tender for supply of oxygen at the biggest hospital in Kenya, Kenyatta National Hospital, worth 700 million shillings. And the people of Mbeere North did not see that as something that should either help them make up their mind on who their member of parliament should be. So if today I meet a person from Mbeere North saying money has been lost from CDF, I look at them with bewildered eyes. I'll be shocked, because here is a person who the EACC has already written to the DPP that we have enough evidence for this person to be charged. They've even changed their name to avoid accountability. This person, the EACC has even written to IEBC not to clear this person. So I start wondering, okay, so how did the guy get cleared to run for member of parliament? And you can't say that he rigged all the votes that he got. No. Rigging happens in Kenya. We can't deny it. But he didn't rig from zero. There is actually somebody who believed in him, lined up and voted for the guy. So that Kenyan who lined up to vote for the guy, whose relative got sick and was taken to Kenyatta National Hospital and died because of lack of oxygen, but still lined up to vote for the guy, we need to begin asking ourselves, what's wrong with that guy? Do we have enough mental hospitals for Kenyans?
So what do you think is the problem here? Because let's look at the very overt expressions that you have had, especially after the by-election. So before this, we've already established what you were going through and what mental space you were in at that point. We said, okay, am I wanting to do this? Am I ready to put myself out there for Kenyans anymore? Where there were allegations that, you asked people to contribute and what were you using the money for and all of that. To come out of that space and to say that, you know what, I still want to do this. Because I did follow a lot of what you said. And at some point you said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. If you think that I have swindled you in any way, I'm going to give it back. 1. 2, you then came back and said, you know what, actually, guys, let me give this a go again. Because it must come from somewhere where you want the country to do better. I'm assuming that that's where it comes from. So when you have that thinking, what do you think the issue is that somebody would want to give their vote to someone who so clearly has abrogated all levels of any kind of rights, constitution, anything?
Let me begin by saying this. The worst thing that can happen to you here in studio and our listeners is to have the burden of leadership placed on your shoulders. That is the most difficult thing that can happen to you. You see, leadership might be sweet for somebody who is looking for a career, probably doesn't have something to do, and politics looks like something he can do and make money. But when you have your own resources, you live in your own house, you have a comfortable life, you have absolutely no reason to care. You can actually go about your life and nothing would affect you. And even if the country were to collapse, you can actually fly to another country and you have enough money to begin a life again. But to have that burden of leadership placed on your shoulders, that's the most difficult thing that can happen to you, because now you start caring about things that people start wondering why you care about them. Of greater concern to me is, what country do I want my children to live in? Because I have a small daughter, she's called Zaina Kerupo. I have a son, he's called Garang Morara. And 2 months ago, we've been blessed by another baby now. He's called Morara Kebaso Jr. So unaona naendelea kazi
No, well done.
ya kuleta wananchi wengine, new voters. I'm bringing new people into this country. But what country do I want them to live in? Do I want to fly them away so that they go live in another country? Or do I want to build a country here for them? And not just for them, but even for the people I went to school with. You know, every week you get over 1,000 inboxes of somebody either asking for help because of a sick patient, asking for money because they are stuck somewhere, or just asking for a job, even if they even don't qualify for the job. They just need anything to do. Now, I could be okay individually, but if the rest of my peers are not doing okay, then it serves me no purpose. Hakuna haja ya kukua na a 6-bedroom mansion in the middle of a slum. Because you see, when the poor have nothing to eat, they'll eat the rich.
Yeah.
And having looked at it from that direction, then I go back and ask myself, so what is the problem with Kenyans? Why would a Kenyan, read the newspaper, listen to the radio, hear that Anne Waiguru is facing corruption allegations, and still go to the ballot and vote for Anne Waiguru as the governor to manage the resources of the county, not once, but twice? What would make a person in Nyaribari, Masaba constituency, read on the news, read the newspaper that EACC is pursuing Dr. Manduku for 6 billion shillings at Kenya Ports Authority, but still go to the ballot and choose him as a member of parliament to manage the Constituency Development Fund? What is this that makes a person at Kakamega who is, maybe doesn't even have a job, doesn't have a way of eating their next meal, go to the ballot to vote for Fernandez Baraza when they've seen on the news that he is being pursued by the Ketraco for money lost while he is the MD? So it bothers me. I keep wondering what then is wrong with Kenyans. And I came to discover we have 3 problems. One is tribalism.
Still an issue?
It is the biggest issue. Tribalism is a bigger issue than corruption. Because corruption cannot survive if tribalism dies. So the first problem is tribalism. And tribalism enabled by tribal political parties. That you'd register DCP for the people of Mount Kenya. That you'd register Wiper for Ukambani. That you'd register DAPK for Luhyaland. That you would do UDA for maybe Rift Valley and some other place. That you would do PAA by Amason Kingi for the coastal people. Tribalism enabled by tribal political parties. And what tribalism does is it makes a Kenyan vote for somebody who is not worth leadership merely because he comes from our home. Huyu ni wetu. And you see, when wanaweza kukula kumalize, the EACC report on Leo Wamuthende mentions the PS for health then, Susan Mochache, who is my neighbor and we come from the same region in Kisii, as somebody who did not act professionally when allocating this tender. If my relative, who is also from Kisii, goes to Kenyatta National Hospital and dies out of lack of oxygen for that purpose, then we will know. Why are we not open to say that the person who created this mess comes from here? Anatoka hapa kwetu. When Kieni is a very dry area, part of it, and farmers need water for irrigation, and Sagana River Restoration Project was for that purpose, to deliver water so that you can plant crops zikue mukule chakula. Now, if a Kenyan there cannot relate their drought or their inability to zalisha chakula to the failure of that project due to corruption, then we need to begin our politics as teachers.
Yes.
We cannot start our politics as politicians. We cannot start our politics as politicians. We need to begin our politics as teachers.
So there's no connection. And let's go through this, because we have this kind of conversation here. That if this person, X, while they worked in a public role or even as a contractor, and that there was X amount of money that under their watch, not disappeared, was taken, was stolen. If you cannot connect between that activity and why you in this particular community don't have this That's where the problem is.
That is where the problem is.
How do we unteach these things?
We have to unteach and teach. You know, what people have already learned, you can't remove it from their system and replace it with nothing. Now, we need to have politicians who begin their career as teachers. We need to start our politics from teaching. And that is what the Vampire Diaries was all about. Teaching is all about teaching you to connect the bad road right outside your home to corruption and to poor governance and to your decision in the ballot. And we need enough voices like Morara Kebaso, because this can't be one man's job. It is a very heavy burden. These people are 55 million. Children are also being lined up to be bribed. I have seen several videos in villages. Even one video which I posted was right outside our home.
What do you mean lined up to be bribed?
Yeah, they say yeye ndio kura ya kesho. Musifukuze watoto, laini ya wamama hapa, laini ya wazee hapa, na ya watoto hapa. If mama na wazee are going to be given 500, watoto 200. So they are already teaching this to children. So we have to unteach and reteach. And we need people at national level teaching it, at county level teaching it, at constituency level teaching it, at ward level teaching it, and at village level teaching people how we've been messing up our country ourselves. That before we even blame politicians, before we even say, oh, Ruto did this, Ruto did that, he did not start having allegations of corruption in 2022. He had them. The question is why you lined up to vote for him in spite of that. The third issue is options. We have been boxed into a political system which intentionally makes you choose between bad people and bad people, so that you are completely disappointed, so that it does two things to you. Either you vote one of the bad persons, or you are too disappointed to go and vote. I've seen people complain a lot about the youth not turning up to vote at the by-elections. And it's true, we watched the videos, we saw the pictures in the lines in the various by-elections in Magarini, in Baringo, in Mbeere North, in Kasipul, in Ugenya. The youth didn't turn out to vote. The question is why? Why are the youth not turning up to vote?
And yet we saw a big movement just a year ago that would suggest that there was fatigue around these things. And then they talk about it being a litmus test for the politicians and what would happen. But many also said it would be a litmus test to see if people were ready to come out and actually vote towards change. Was it?
The youth's problem and why they are not able to turn out to vote, number one is options. You come out, okay, let's imagine that in 2027, we are coming out to vote between William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. Personally, I don't even know whether I should come out and vote or who I should be voting for. So first, we need to create options. Now, it's not politicians who are corrupt to create options for us, because we are like, sisi ni kama wale wana wa ndege ambao tumebaki pale kwa nest waiting for mama ambaye alienda kutafuta chakula. Tumefanya mdomo hivi, tunangoja akuja atuwekee chakula kwa mdomo. As youth, we must venture out there and create those options. And the beginning of creating those options is a political party. Now, I know most people don't think a political party is important, but a political party is the bus that takes you to town. Now, from Githurai, there are buses that carry 56 people into town. But you could take an Uber. But if you needed Ubers to pick 56 people, you will need 56 Ubers. So then it is better to have one bus carry 56 people into town than have 56 Ubers carrying people into town, because that would cause very heavy traffic. Now, political parties bring like-minded people together to come and form a communion of like-minded ideas. And by sticking together, you are able first to reduce the cost of politics. When you are in a political party, and I've seen people say, then why don't we vote for independent MPs? Independent MPs become like low-hanging fruits for the president to buy. But when you are a political party, you have a political party constitution. It's possible to discipline an errant member. It's a structure that has a leadership, that has objectives, that has the values establishing the political party, the vision where you want to take the country as a political party, so that then it puts you together. So when you are getting lost, there's a piece of document called a party constitution that you can go back to and says, by the way, when we were forming this thing in 2025, these were our values. Now, the youth should not underestimate or underrate the importance of having a political party that is not based on tribe, because that's where we are missing it. If you join a political party, for example, ODM, look at how ODM governors are managing counties. Now, that behavior will be taught to you, even if you don't want to learn it. Boyd Were might not be violent, but the way violence is exacted and the way it's taught to him is taught to him as a form of protection and as a form of also subduing an enemy. So you are not violent, but it is taught into you. So if we join these political parties which have been there, have been part of the problem, what those political parties will teach you is the same mistake that has happened. We need to leave, form something different based on different values, and now build that thing.
Aurora, you see, we talk about how the young people now should get out there and be the solution. There's this story on The Nation, Gen Z hopefuls face brutal truth of politics go ground, Many came out and wanted to fill all these by-election posts, but they found things were really difficult. And there is this that has been said by Amos Katana: once you auction democracy to the highest bidder, it becomes difficult for citizens to be heard or get development. His mission is to bring change. And the change that he's bringing about, he's gone to the ground, spoken to the people in his constituency, but found it really difficult to penetrate because, like you've said, politics has been weaponized. But what has been weaponized even more is poverty. Many have taken advantage of the fact that Kenyans are unable to. That's why there is bribe. But the young people are here and are seen as the saving grace of this country. They should get out there. But many as well say politics is a dirty game. I don't want to be involved. How then do we have this conversation with young people and ensure that, the only way is to form a party, get into this party, this bus that you can control and take us to Canaan. That let us change how politics has been done in this country, because the young people are the majority. Do even the youth understand the power they have just by the numbers and statistics that do exist?
My actually biggest worry was after we said we are tribeless, then I started seeing the leading voices in the tribeless campaign now campaigning for their tribal kingpins, saying, I'm a Gen Z, but I know where I come from, and where I come from, we have a kingpin. So when the youth slide back into tribalism to go and rally behind their tribal kingpins, the end result is that you donate your decision-making power to somebody else whose values might not be your values and whose mission in leadership might not be your mission. You might surrender your power to, say, Rigathi Gachagua, and you say, sisi kingpin wetu ni Rigathi Gachagua. But have you understood Rigathi Gachagua's mission? Do you know his values? Where does he want to take Kenya? Is it these things that probably he's saying that, the Nairobi city belongs to one tribe and all 17 constitutions should go to one tribe? Are those the values you want to align with? And when you surrender your power to this person and he gets 80, 100 members of parliament and negotiates for his tenders and deals and so on and so forth, where does that leave you as a jobless youth without a business, without a way to start a family? We need to keep talking to the youth, and you've asked me how, and this is one of the ways. Coming to shows like this, to have this conversation with them, so that those who will hear us this morning will go and talk to somebody else near them, or who lives in the same house with them, or who works in the same workplace with them. And by that, we are creating ambassadors of change. The other thing that probably the Gen Z underrated, and which we are seeing on page 7 of the Daily Nation, they underrated the power of money in politics. When I began the culture of fundraising for candidates, I already knew that this thing is a problem. It is not something that occurred to me from just a dream. I had seen it over the years growing up, and I had observed it very keenly, and I'd come to the realization that money is a very powerful tool inside our politics, in the sense of how much it mobilizes tribalism, how it mobilizes violence. Money mobilizes violence by hiring goons, and how money is used for voter bribery. Now, my idea to the youth was, do not rubbish this idea that you need to fundraise, because that's what happens in developed countries. You are not going to outcompete somebody who's made 700 million from Kenyatta National Hospital. You are not going to outcompete him in bribing voters. What you need is facilitation for your message to be heard. And by facilitation, we mean, for example, media. Even being able to, even the fare, to just show up at the Standard and leave. Security, because you're moving around to change something. Those people you are changing, they might not be ready for that change, and you can be attacked, your property can be burnt, as we saw in this by-election. Now, you need to be alive to see the new Kenya you are fighting for. You are of no use when you are dead. So for you to stay alive, you need some buffer zone, some security. Therefore, you need to have a budget for security. You need to have a budget for visibility, for posters, for people to see your face and know your name. You need probably a public address system. Maybe you can buy one or be hiring one so that people can hear your voice when seated back there and hear what you're trying to say and try and make whether they can resonate with your voice. These things require resources called money which many youth do not have. If you look for a youth who probably drives a car, the one that Morara Kebaso drives, you find maybe 1 in 3 million, or 1 in 2 million, or 10 in 2 million. There are not so many. So what happens to these other youth who have a passion for leadership, have a conviction in their heart that there is something that they can change, but have no resources to even begin that political journey? And if they go to the legendary political parties, you find the party ticket being sold. Sasa umeingia kwa party. Wamesema ubunge milioni 10. Utatoa wapi? Wacha hata hiyo 10 million. Hata muambiwe ni free, toa 100,000 for nominations.
Can I make a connection?
Yeah.
If the things that you're talking about, if children today, according to what you said, are lining up to essentially be bribed, because that's what it is. We can call it whatever we want, but that's it. That I'm going to give you something for something in return that I should be able to convince you of without a handout. And what we're saying is that if people were coalescing around an idea in a political party, do we need as much money for elections, for campaigns rather, that we're seeing that people are saying 10 million shillings for you to run a campaign to be elected? A good amount of that money goes towards handouts, we know. So if we remove the handout culture, for example, and rewire our thinking, restructure it around, can we have conversations around what change can be? Do we need so much money to campaign?
No, we will need money, but we will not need as much money. People need as much money because of what you've correctly pointed out, voter bribery. But if the youth can coalesce together and decide to identify around their generation and their future, stop identifying around your tribe, identify around your generation, the commonly shared problems, and the future that you're seeking. They can even inspire the older generations to join them. It has to begin somewhere. It can't begin with everyone. It has to start somewhere. So if it begins with the youth and they're able to inspire the millennials, the Gen Xs, and all other generations that this road looks like a good road for our future and your future, other people will join them. And when you are together, believe you me, you need very little money, because the kind of euphoria and wave you are able to build out of that is able to sweep away even the effect of money. And that is why I've said it in the many videos that I've been doing. The only people who are capable of defeating President William Ruto at the ballot is the youth of the Republic of Kenya. The opposition, even if they unite how many tribes, they cannot beat William Ruto at the ballot for the following reasons.
Okay.
The youth are the only one who can be able to defeat state violence. Because state violence comes in form of police and in form of goons. And the Gen Z already demonstrated in Nairobi CBD that they can defeat state violence and occupy parliament, and they can defeat goons, the goons that were mobilized by politicians to kind of beat them up. Some of them, they got themselves in a very precarious situation. So they are the only ones who can defeat state violence, which will be employed as a tool in 2027 for voter suppression. Number two, the youth have technological knowledge like no other generation, and we give it to them. That knowledge of technology and that connectivity through social media, they are the only ones who can be able to tally results on real time in a way that even the IEBC will find it hard to catch up with the speed at which Form 34As will be streaming into Telegram from the polling station. By the time IEBC announces anything, it's already on the Gen Z website. It's already on the Gen Z Telegram group. It's already on our blockchain technology. They are just reporting after news. They are telling us what we already know. So if you can go ahead of them in giving the news that this is the polling session from Nyankononi Primary School, these are the results, and I as a Gen Z have already taken a photo, it's verifiable. In fact, we've taken a photo, 10 of us. It's right here. This is Form 34A. Mukisikia imebadilishwa, mujue hii imeibiwa. Thirdly, the Gen Z are the only ones who can out-campaign him with the amount of money he has. You just need to look at how much money has been lost since 2022 or since 2013 and just make a rough guess of probably how much money the campaign of William Ruto already has for purposes of voter bribery and other things. But if you have a youth euphoria, he cannot outcompete them in money because money will become useless. There are campaigns where money becomes useless. For example, in Kasipul, we had a candidate called Money Bior who found money to be useless. Okay? So it's possible for money to be useless in a campaign depending on the decision of the voter. Kama voter ameamua pesa around hii haifanyi kazi. For example, in the by-elections in Nyamira County, state operatives came with a lot of money to offer to voters, but they still lost. Because when the voter makes a decision that money is not going to influence this election, for sure money will not influence that election. So the youth need to come together on this election and make it theirs. And you see, they can't come together around the opposition. Because you see, the youth, forget the ones who are paid as bloggers to hype the opposition. The real youth who just listens to Spice FM and probably never says anything political but just agrees in their mind, knows that there is no change that can come through the people that we have in the opposition because they were previously there, they've been there, done that, never changed anything.
Yeah.
The youth need some energetic group that can bring them together. And unfortunately, Maraga and Omutata are not offering that energy. Youthful energy that the youth need to coalesce around. They are not offering it. They are too tired for politics.
So are you're saying, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear you speak, and that paints a picture in terms of what one would say, lose everything but don't lose hope. Maintain that hope that the future is bright. And there's even a question that has been asked here by one of our listeners, and is asking the question of everyone who's out there, who is this individual who Kenyans can vote for, that Kenyans can trust outside the coalitions? Someone who harbors the idea, the promise of a better Kenya that is being exuded out here without both coalitions, because you've said, if you look at the government and broad-based government coalition, messed up. You look at the opposition, messed up. Then who is this individual who Kenyans can vote for or Kenyans can champion to be their president? Because Kenyans can also push for an individual to be their president outside these coalitions.
It can't be one person. There's no one person who can marshal that amount of support. It needs to be a group of people. And those people, for them to identify with the youth, they need to be youthful first. Because it's not easy, by the way, as an older generation to resonate with the youth. Because when you talk to the youth, they feel like you are talking down at them. It needs somebody who is youthful. First, who understands the youthful language, who is youthful, who understands what the youth are looking for, who understands the youthful promise, and who will be there to enjoy that youthful promise. In Senegal, the people were able to coalesce around Osman Sonko and Diamoy Faye. In Kenya, we need to build up something youthful. I always talk to some of my friends, and I'll mention them on this show so that they keep knowing that I'm calling on them to wake up from where they are, from their sleep, and come over. Edwin Sifuna, you cannot speak for ODM today and support broad-based government and oppose it the next day. So you have two shoes. You are the SecGen, but still there is something burning in you that something needs to change in this country. Now go with what is burning in you. Being SecGen ODM is convenience. It's just the power that you have now. What about the power that you could have? These people that are stuck with the old political parties, like Caleb Amisi, what are you doing in ODM? Already, your ideas and your thinking is pointing that there is something inside you that is burning, that something needs to change in this country. So why are you not taking initiative? Why are you afraid that, if you leave ODM, you're going to lose your seat? What's that fear? We need to move fearlessly into the future. What is this fear that Ndindi Nyoro has? That, you can give all this good advice in theory. But now coming to make it practical, it becomes a very difficult thing, because you feel like if you leave government, the government will come after you. If you do this, you've already built trust with the people. You may not be a perfect human being, but you've already built trust. Why is it so difficult for us to coalesce? And
why?
Why
is it so difficult?
It's because even when you're dating, you can't be able to move on into a new relationship or marriage before leaving baggage of the old relationship. If you're still stuck with your ex, you cannot move into your new relationship and be fruitful. Kama bado akili yako ni ya uko kwa ex wako, uwezi ingia kwa hii relationship na ukue truthful and honest to your partner. Kwa hivyo tuachane na ex. If we are gonna move, let's block ex's number. Let us move. If ex knows our house, let us move to a new neighborhood. Let us change our mobile number, which ex cannot reach us anymore. And let's move into the new relationship. You've already understood that this person is toxic. You've already understood that this person, you have no future with them. By their own reasoning, they also don't have a future with you. So why are you still stuck there? So people are stuck between eating the fruits of playing the current political game versus losing their positions and embracing a new future that is real. So it will take sacrifices. There are people who lose their positions but gain them someday in the future. Are those people willing to make those sacrifices? I don't know. I'm willing to make those sacrifices, but it may not be the same for others. Probably the allure of being a member of parliament is too sweet, and you are thinking, mi natoka Mount Kenya. Nikianza kuchallenge hawa watu, I'll not get the DCP ticket. And if I don't get the DCP ticket, I'll not be the next thing I want to be, senator or governor. Let me play politics the way it has always been played, because it has been played like that and it has been proven to succeed. Even if it has been played like that, that is the source of the problem. We need to leave and build something new.
I hear you. And I'm thinking one needs to, the aspiration or the end goal is to, all right, if you made it in business, I'm sure you have these conversations where people say, oh, you've made it in business, you seem to be doing okay, why not go into politics? It seems to be an promotion that you give yourself in your career, that you say, well, go into politics, without realizing that going into positions of leadership in a state, in a nation state, is one of servitude, number one. Number two, it is a dedication to ensure that the livelihoods of people get better and that the state of the nation actually improves to a point where it is sustainable, it is efficient, and it is sufficient, right? Do you think there is satisfaction? Because many people would imagine, let me go and make money, let me go and become a entrepreneur while I'm a member of parliament, governor, whatever. Is there satisfaction in doing what a position of leadership actually encourages under the Constitution for you to do and do it right?
It depends whether you have the conviction of leadership. Most people are going into politics, are not going into politics because they have a conviction of leadership. They are going into politics like, I've driven a Prado, now I need to drive a V8. Yeah, I drove the Lexus LX 570. It was good, petrol, but I need to drive the LX 600 and see how better it is. Most people are going there as personal fulfillment, as something to add on top of their name, honorable or something. They don't have that conviction to come and change anything. And that's why some of them never say anything in parliament. You walk into a waiting room of the MDs of various state corporations, and you find MPs always seated at the VIP waiting room. What are they waiting? They've not come to ask for development. They've come to ask for a tender. You go to anywhere, in any public office where tenders can be found, state corporations, ministries, you find members of parliament and senators seated at the waiting room, waiting to see the CS, waiting to see the PS, to see if they can get the next tender and make money. In a properly functioning state, politicians should not be richer than businessmen. In a properly functional state. Because if your mission is to make money, do business. Don't go into politics. Politics is not there to make money. It is there to serve. The money that you're given is to make you comfortable enough to serve, to live in a secure neighborhood, to drive a safe car, and to take your children to a decent school so that you can have the calmness and solitude of mind to serve the people without complaining about poverty.
You see,
but it is not supposed to make you a billionaire. Now here we have politicians who are billionaires, but they cannot be put on Forbes list. Because most of their billions are not even in their names. Some are in my mother-in-law's name, a child's name, a son-in-law's name, a PA's name, because they are trying to hide it. Why are you hiding it if it is legitimate? Own it openly that I am the director of this and this company. Why are you owning it through proxies? It's because you are already ashamed. You know what you've done. And my assurance to politicians, because I've been in spaces with many of them. In the estate where I live with many of them. I've studied many of them. Coming from a family of politics, I've known many politicians throughout my life. It never ends well. It never ends well for any corrupt politician. It never, ever, ever ends well. So if we need it to end well, if your desire is for your life to end well, please don't put the priority or the greed of money ahead of service to your people. Where you take money belonging to a project that is supposed to benefit your own people. Yani kwenu kabisa, ini barabara yenye mama yako atapitia. Ini hospitali yenye your sister akipata emergency. Hiyo ndio hospitali ya first response mahali atapelekwa. Na wewe umekula MRI machine. Wewe umekula X-ray machine. Wewe umekula CT scan machine. Umedivert to a private hospital. Okay? How do you sleep at night? What conscience do you have? And that's why most of these politicians, even when some of us will take power, because we will at some day in our lifetime, when we'll be pursuing to recover some of this money, some of it will be unrecoverable because of what it was spent on. Because somebody went and bought whiskey, King George V, worth 75,000. Sasa nitaitoa wapi? I can't go to the washroom and
get it back.
and siphon it back. So these people, nobody should think that they are spending money on important things. Actually, they are spending money on things that are completely not important. And they spend so much money after 10 years in governance. When they've retired or left office, they have nothing to show. So the message this morning to anybody who thinks that politics is a career or an opportunity to make money, just go study the history of those who went into politics to make money. See how it ended with them. Choose whether indeed that is the path you want to go. But if you have a conviction, something is burning in your conscience, that this Kenya haiko sawa, something need to be done for it to be sawa, then join other voices. Begin by talking about it. You know, there's a way things gravitate towards each other. If you're speaking at Standard Media and somebody is speaking the same language at Royal Media elsewhere, and somebody is speaking the same language in some local radio station anywhere, the likelihood that your paths will cross is very high.
It's high.
Because you're already thinking the same way. You're already thinking about where Kenya should be headed. So let's not give up hope. Let's not say, politicians are too rich. Politicians are too powerful. They have too many goons. They are undefeatable. It begins by talking. It begins by speaking. You know, even by speaking this morning, I might have changed the mind of one goon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There is one goon who was to be hired tomorrow for political violence, but he has decided, well, how much are they paying? They're paying 500 bob. what if I just go to a garage here on Baricho Road? See, I'll make the 500. Or what if I go to bus station and help carry mizigo? See, I'll make the 500. Or what if I go and become a mtu wa mkono kwa some construction site? See, I'll make 700 bob. To hell with being a goon. In any case, I'm risking my life. Mimi naenda kazi bana. Nyinyi kama mtaenda ugun, nyinyi muende, mukirudi jioni salama, ni Mungu amewasamea, so that you get another opportunity to repent. If you don't come back in the evening, majuto ni mjukuu huja baadaye. But as the young people and the Gen Zs, we need to ask ourselves whether what we went to look for in the streets, we got it. Because it's unfair for all those people to die and be injured for nothing. Surely something should come out of it, and that is why we've refused to rest until something comes out of it.
I'm glad that you're speaking. I'm glad that you are not being shy about the position, no matter what. And so mine is a message to implore you to keep in the speaking space. At the very least at this point, before it gets towards more action. Morara Kibaso, thank you so much for being here this morning. We look forward to the next conversation with you, because it definitely will be had. It's 8:03. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.